and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. This is Irreverent, Faith and Current Affairs.
Welcome everyone to Irreverent, Faith and Current Affairs. It's me, Jamie Franklin, vicar in the Church of England, but coming from, what would you say, a different perspective to what you might expect. Maybe, listener, maybe. Today, I'm actually recording this on Wednesday morning. People who don't support the podcast will get this on Friday morning. I think that people who support will get it on Wednesday afternoon. I'm not sure. The reason I mention this is because, of course, everyone is aware that it's the Europa League final tonight, Spurs versus Manchester United, and I am a Spurs fan for my sins, as they say. I'm hoping that Spurs are going to win this game and win their first European trophy for 40 years and their first trophy of any sort for 17 years. I think it is anyway. So come on, you Spurs. I hope that by the time people listen to this, Spurs will have crushed Man U and beaten them down into the dust. I had a dream last night that Spurs were 1-0 up in the second half, and then Son scored this goal with his left foot, and then it was the decisive goal. The game didn't end with Spurs winning, but they were 2-0 up, and it was like the Son goal was the decisive one. So if that happens, I'm not lying. I'm recording this before the game. Okay, so that happens. I've actually had a prophetic dream where I've foreseen the future. Why couldn't that happen? That's what I'm saying. Why couldn't that happen? It could do. Anyway, I'm going to get on with things. I'm going to be talking about the news. I'm going to be talking a bit about assisted dying, faith leaders calling for a change in immigration rhetoric. I'm going to talk about Gary Lineker quitting the BBC over the the anti-Semitic post he put on what's it called, Instagram. I'm going to talk about Keir Starmer surrendering to the EU, and I'm also going to talk about the UK Eurovision entry. I haven't actually listened to it. I'm going to do a special listen reaction for your enjoyment, listener. So I hope you enjoy this episode. I have a special announcement coming up at the end of the show, and that special announcement is relevant for people who support the show. And the reason I need people to support the show is because the show costs money to make, and because I live off the money I make podcasting and writing. So if you appreciate the show, if you listen to it regularly, I do ask that you consider supporting us. You get a whole host of benefits. You get the episodes early. You get a bonus audio podcast called Uncollared, and you also get special episodes which don't get released to the general public, and you get special events as well now, special actual events. And we've got our first live in-person event coming up soon. I'm going to give some little details about that later on, but in order to learn about it properly and to be included in this growing community of people, the Irreverent subscribers, you can go to our website, irreverentpod.com, and click on the big red button and become a patron today. It only costs £1.50 a month plus VAT in the UK. It's really not very much at all. The main thing is about just getting your card or whatever you use and organizing yourself to go to the website and doing it. It costs almost nothing, but it helps so much. And also it's just great to have people as part of the community subscribing. So do go there, irreverentpod.com, and click on that big red button. Or you can subscribe to us on Substack, which is £5 a month, and that's irreverentpod.substack.com. And then you can get some details about our special first in-person events that's coming up quite soon, just for subscribers. So please do go to one of those two places and subscribe, and then you can be included. If you want to make a direct donation, that's fine as well. For people who make direct donations, I can give you a free subscription to Substack. So that's another way of doing it. If you'd like to do that, please email irreverentpod@gmail.com. But we really do need and value the support of our listeners. So please do consider doing that. And you're going to get so much stuff. It's not to say that ordinary listeners won't get stuff. You get this. This is a free podcast. But special subscribers, you get special things because of your help and support the podcast. So thank you for doing that. irreverentpod.com. Click on the big red button or go to irreverentpod.substack.com. Thank you. Right, I'm going to do a simple reading from Psalm 23 to begin with, just because, to be honest, listener, I've been having trouble sleeping recently. I'm waking up really early in the morning, and it's having quite a debilitating effect on me. And if I'm honest with you, this morning I'm feeling really, really tired, but there's no other time in the week that I can record this podcast. So partly I'm reading Psalm 23 to keep it simple, but also I'm reading this because I want to remind myself, and feel like it's a good reminder for you all as well, of the Lord's care for us, of his refreshing presence, of his help when we're going through challenges and difficulties, how he's constantly with us, even when things seem bleak, even when things seem difficult. The Lord is the same. The Lord is always guiding us and leading us and being this peaceful and calming presence to us. So let's say the Lord's Prayer together, and then we'll read Psalm 23. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive them that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, therefore can I lack nothing. He shall feed me in a green pasture, and lead me forth beside the waters of comfort. He shall convert my soul, and bring me forth in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff comfort me. Thou shalt prepare a table before me against them that trouble me. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, and my cup shall be full. For thy loving kindness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Psalm 23, one of the most famous parts of Scripture, of course, with that lovely image of Christ as the shepherd, as we see revealed to us in the Gospels, that he leads us in a green pasture, leads us forth beside waters of comfort, converting the soul, strengthening and restoring the soul, bringing us forth in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake, for his glory, helping us to grow, helping us to be conformed to his image. And even when we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, the difficulties, the pain and the suffering of life, God is with us. Christ is with us, our good shepherd. He prepares a table for us against the people that trouble us, the situations that trouble us, the anxieties that we have, the pain in our heart. And he anoints our heads with oil, and our cup should be full, symbolizing the provision and help that God gives us in so many ways. And then the final promise, thy loving kindness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Even as God is faithful to us all the days of our life, we know that he will be with us forever, literally, even beyond our death, because we will be with him in the place where he dwells. So it's a beautiful psalm. And even as we read these things, as we contemplate them, we feel our souls lifted. And I hope you feel your soul lifted as I feel my soul lifted by reading this. So there we are. All right, now let's get to it. Let's start with a bit of Eurovision. Now, I didn't watch Eurovision. I'm not interested in Eurovision. Why am I doing this? Maybe you watched it. Maybe you're interested in it. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm mainly doing it just for a kind of light-hearted way of starting the show. So let's see this. There may be an advert. It's a YouTube video, so there might be an advert at the beginning of it. Yeah, there is. Hang on a second. Oh, no, there isn't actually. Let's get right to it. So this, I should say before this begins, this is a group called Remember Monday. And then the song is What the Hell Just Happened. I assume it's that way around, that the band isn't called What the Hell Just Happened, but the song is. So let's listen to this, and I'll rate it, using my musical knowledge as well. I am a musician. I'll rate it, and we'll see what we think of it. Okay, so here we go. This is, and it did really badly. I think they bombed basically. But yeah, let's.
Someone lost a shoe. I'm still in last night's makeup. I'm waking up like, what's this new tattoo?
It's three women. They're dressed like Belle out of Beauty and the Beast. I don't know. They're wearing. It's different colors, but they look kind of similar.
the hell just happened?
This is mixed really badly. You can tell it's live.
No clue, but I liked it. You're invented, let's go! 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Broke a heel, lost my key, scraped a knee when I fell from the chandelier.
I can't hear what they're saying. I'm thinking they must be speaking English because they're the English entry, but I United Kingdom entry, but I can't understand what they're saying.
Oh, I denied, I don't mind. It was time to unwind, and I volunteered. Look at me now. I'm like Angelique, beauty sleeps in my tea. What the hell just happened?
You know what this reminds me of? I mean, it's awful, obviously, but it's almost like the team that's written it is influenced by Paul McCartney and Wings. It sort of reminds me of the kind of song that McCartney was writing during the Wings era, and I don't think it's anywhere near as good as any of those songs. Just to say, because a lot of those songs are really good, but in terms of like the time changes and there's an attempt to do something interesting here, but it's terrible. The melodies are non-existent, and I'm going to stop it now. It's terrible. One of the things about music, good songs, are you can sing them when there's no accompaniment. Like like say, just speaking of McCartney and Wings, you take a song like Mull of Kintyre or Live and Let Die, whatever it is, anything. I just naming things that come off the top of my head. Any Beatles song, anything written by Paul McCartney, anything written by a decent songwriter, any hymn which is a good tune. You don't need any kind of accompaniment to sing it, because you can just the melody is good enough, and you can just sing it without any accompaniment at all. It works. It carries itself. If you were to try and sing this song, well, let's put it this way: I don't think anyone would ever sing this song without accompaniment, because there is no melody. It's just a kind of bland flamage of different time signatures, and there's the chord progressions are obscure and non-existent. I don't mean obscure in a good way. I mean you can't sort of hear the harmony, you can't hear the accompaniment. Just listen to it for a minute more.
What the hell just happened? What the hell just happened?
Do. That's the melody. It's rubbish. Sorry, it's rubbish, and it doesn't surprise me that this song tanked, because it sucks. It was written by about 6 people, and you can when songs are written by 5 or 6 people, you always know they're going to be rubbish. The fact is like writing a pop song is actually quite easy if you're good at doing it. I'm not saying I'm good at doing it, but like people who are good at writing songs like this don't need a committee to do it. Like, just going back to the example I used earlier, John Lennon and Paul McCartney, they often wrote songs together, but they often wrote songs by themselves in like 10 minutes. McCartney, famously wrote Yesterday after waking up and having a dream, waking up after a dream and then just writing it down. So this is terrible. The standard of music is appalling. And this is what culture comes down to nowadays. This is, yeah. Anyway, awful song, awful performance of it. I didn't like watching it. I know you can't see it, but many of you will have seen it. A disgrace. There we are. Okay, so let's talk about some news. So the assisted dying bill, as it's called, which is actually a suicide bill, it's actually looking not so bad in the UK now, because a number of MPs who voted for it or abstained are now saying they're going to vote against it, which is good. So it's been delayed until mid-June. The next debate on it, or the next steps anyway, have been delayed until mid-June, which is good because the parliamentary session on Friday ran out of time to debate the amendments that had been tabled. Now, I hope and pray that this bill fails. I still think that at some point it will come back because I think that's the direction that society is heading unless things turn around. But I think it's been so badly drafted and it's so clearly unworkable that even people who are ideologically or principally in favour of it are now questioning it. So that's good. So let's read some of this article from the Church Times. Talks about the bill to legalise assisted dying in the UK won't receive its next vote in the House of Commons until 30th June, following the run out of time. So it says that more than 90 MPs had indicated their desire to speak, and despite a time limit being imposed on speeches, insufficient progress was made for members to vote on the bill as a whole. The only substantial change to be introduced on Friday extends the list of people who can refuse to take part in the process of assisted dying. The wording in the bill already allowed medical practitioners to refuse involvement. The new wording extends the range of the opt-out to include any healthcare workers involved at any point in the process. However, an amendment was defeated which would have ensured that an employee who works for an employer such as a hospice who has chosen not to provide assisted dying could not themselves do so. So that would have meant that an employee who an employee who works for an employer such as a hospice, so you're an employee in a hospice who has chosen not to provide assisted dying, could not themselves do so. Yeah, I suppose that makes sense, does it? So it would be you as an employer saying you are not going to assist in assisted dying, even though, say, your hospice does it, and then you don't, you don't do it yourself. But anyway, that's been taken away. That amendment has not been added. So there was. I'm not sure about that though, because then Caroline Ansnell, the Director of Advocacy and Policy at the charity Christian Action, Research and Education, and the former Conservative MP for Eastbourne, said last Friday that she was deeply saddened by the vote this afternoon to deny hospices and care homes the right to opt out of facilitating assisted suicide should Kim Leadbeater's bill become law. This could cause some vital services to close their doors. So maybe that's about hospices themselves not being able to opt out. Yeah, I don't know. I've not quite understood that. Anyway, the main thing I wanted to just comment on here was this. A campaigner for the legalization of assisted dying, Dame Esther Ransom, was criticised during the debate for her accusation that opponents of the bill were motivated by undeclared religious belief. The Labour MP for Lowestoft, Jess Assato, said on Friday that the comments made in a letter to MPs were distasteful and disrespectful. The MP for Vauxhall and Camberwell Green, Florence Eshalomi, also Labour, said that it was, quote, insulting to disabled people and hard-working professionals up and down the country to have their many valid concerns about this bill dismissed as religious belief. And then, so just a couple of comments. There's a couple more things to be said here, but this thing is such a weird criticism that Esther Ransom makes, that undeclared personal religious beliefs might be motivating the MP's views on this and what they're saying. Well, if you are religious, quote unquote religious, if you are, say, a Christian, of course you're going to be motivated by your religious belief. You can't separate your religious belief from what you think about something like this. It seems to be implying this idea of the public sphere being a religion-free zone, which is just nonsense. It's always been nonsense. And it's nonsense now. Sorry, I just dropped something. And it's nonsense now. So that's really strange. And then for this Labour MP to say this is insulting to have valid concerns dismissed as religious beliefs. Well, it depends on why you think that's insulting. Not because, being religious is insulting, but it's insulting because you're saying religious beliefs are inadmissible in a public conversation and worthless, and actually worse than worthless, but pernicious. Then the Conservative MP for Bexhill and Battle, Kieran Mullen, responded to the debate on behalf of the opposition and said that he was concerned to see the clumsy criticism of those whose objections to the bill are thought to be centred in their religious beliefs, not least because I suspect that a very large number of supporters of the bill might draw on their Christian or other religious compassion to explain why they want to see it pass. So that it cuts both ways, doesn't it? Some people will be motivated by religious beliefs in the other direction, although I think they'd be mistaken if they were doing it from a Christian perspective. Miss Ansell also criticised, and Miss Ansell is the Director of Advocacy and Policy at the charity Christian Action Research and Education. She criticised the amount of time allotted for debate on Friday, saying that it compounded concern about the bill. Some parliamentarians didn't get to speak to their amendments, and those who did faced a rushed debate in which they weren't able to elaborate on vital points. This is not how Parliament should deliberate on any issue, let alone one of such gravity. Quite true. Now, let's continue to pray that this bill fails and that it never comes to pass in our country, but we'll see. Now, another thing I wanted to comment on is another article in the Church Times, which is about faith leaders who have come together to urge the Prime Minister to reconsider his migration rhetoric. This was after we reported this last week that Keir Starmer became a kind of hard right Enoch Powell impersonator and did this speech where he said that people were feeling like strangers in their own homes and so on and so forth. And he's gone so far to the right. He's become so extreme. I mean, surprisingly, people are very surprised about it. I'm surprised to see him go this far. And I can only surmise that he's either had a change of heart or he's worried that the Labour are going to be wiped out the next election because they're so unpopular. But anyway, you've got these senior leaders coming together. I'll read out who they are. So signatories include Imam Kari Asim, Rabbi Jonathan Wittenberg, and a number of senior Anglican bishops, representatives from the Baptist Union of Great Britain, Liberal Judaism, the Methodist Church, the Salvation Army, the Scottish Episcopal Church, the Scottish Ahlul Bayt Society. I have to say I've never heard of that. And the United Reformed Church were also amongst those who signed. Anglican bishops were 15 of them: Bristol, Chelmsford, Gloucester, Guildford, Leeds, Leicester, Lichfield, Lincoln, London, Manchester, St Albans, Sheffield, Shrewsbury, Southwark and Winchester indeed. So what does the letter say? Dear Prime Minister, the government's recent rhetoric on migration, our call for a more compassionate narrative. We are writing as faith leaders to ask you to reconsider the language that government uses when discussing migration, following the rhetoric used to announce the immigration white paper earlier this week. Our concern is that the current narrative, which presents only one side of the debate, will only drive public anxiety and entrench polarization. When you refer to the incalculable damage done by uncontrolled migration, you are in danger of harming migrant members of our communities and strengthening those who would divide us. We recognise that there is a public concern around migration and what it means for our society, which of course must be addressed, but this must be done in a way which is principled and lowers the temperature of the debate, respecting the dignity of all who make up our nation. People have come to the UK under the rules set by successive governments, paying whatever fees and surcharges to work, contribute and pay taxes. Framing this as somehow unfair only feeds the politics of grievance and division. In our work as faith leaders, we see that real and lasting integration comes through building relationships. It is through sharing experiences that we come to recognise our common humanity. We urge the government to think more holistically and positively about fostering good integration. The recommendations of several government commission reviews into integration remain on the shelf. In the context of a genuine debate on migration, we are appealing to you to also affirm those things that would bring us together across our diversity. Only by doing so can we actually fix the systemic problems faced by those within our current asylum system and humanitarian protection schemes. Promoting fair policies that balance the needs of host communities with real opportunities for people restarting their lives after fleeing war, conflict and persecution is a necessary start. Finally, we wish to speak up for all those whose voices are rarely heard in these debates, but who have been at the sharp end of recent rhetoric. These include many from within our own faith communities who have built new homes and lives in the UK, becoming part of our national story and fabric. Our country would be so much poorer without them. Now, what I think about this is, I think that this is, to be perfectly honest with you, the kind of typical I don't really know how else to say it, but the kind of typical liberal elite groupthink on migration, which is it just um, I don't really know what to say about it. It says nothing at all that would surprise me in any way. I think it's out of touch with reality in a number of ways. For a start, I think that the rhetoric that the Prime Minister used was, I mean, I was only joking. I think it was very, very mild, to be honest with you. And I think although I think that he is saying it for reasons other than personal conviction, I think that some things are very true that he said about people feeling like strangers in their own country and about the problems that unfettered immigration causes for people who live in the country already. So I don't think they can just be dismissed as divisive rhetoric. But there are a couple of telling phrases in this letter. Our concern is that the current narrative, which presents only one side of the debate, will only drive public anxiety and entrench polarization. If by one side of the debate they mean the anti-immigration side, I would say that that's completely the opposite to reality. The reality is that this side of the debate is the debate that nobody wants to listen to, is that the elites don't want to have articulated, and that whenever anyone says anything about it, they're accused of being racist or divisive. The latter, of course, being exactly what this letter is doing. So really what this is about is about acknowledging the what can I say without being accused of being divisive? Acknowledging the very, very real disadvantages and damage that unfettered immigration does to indigenous communities in our nation. That's the side of the debate which isn't heard. And it also speaks to this bit at the end as well, when they said, we wish to speak up for all those whose voices are rarely heard in these debates. The people whose voices aren't heard is not the people coming in on the boats and things like that. The people whose voices aren't heard are the ordinary working class people who live in our countries, who are being massively disadvantaged by immigration. Their unemployment is going up. Infrastructure around schools, policing, hospitals, doctor's appointments, all these kind of things are breaking down as a result of this. You have these migrant hotels everywhere where you have undocumented migrants being housed in people's communities. You have communities just changing in ways which make people feel uncomfortable and make them, like Starmer said, feel like their home has been fundamentally changed. So these are the people whose voice is not being heard, and this is why parties like Reform, well, it's the only party really, but in our country and other countries, parties like Reform are doing so well, is because nobody's giving them a voice. And when somebody comes along and gives them a voice, they vote for them. People are always voting for parties that say they're going to do something about immigration. Now, they know now that the Tories aren't going to do anything about it because they had 13 years to do something about it and they did nothing. So they stayed away from the last election. Now they're going to vote for Reform for the same reasons. So, if you were to be charitable to what Starmer was doing, you could say that he was trying to address people's legitimate concerns. Now, here this letter says, we recognise there is a public concern around migration and what it means for our society, which of course must be addressed. But this must be so. It throws a sop to the idea that there's a public concern around migration, but then it doesn't elaborate on what that would be, and it shows no understanding whatsoever of what that concern might be. And then it says, people have come to the UK under the rules set by successive governments, paying whatever fees and surcharges to work, contribute and pay taxes. Framing this as somehow unfair only feeds the politics of grievance and division. Well, just because the government has set rules doesn't mean that it's fair. That's a strange logical movement, isn't it, to say, well, the government has set these rules and therefore it's fair to have 600,000 net migration every year. Just because the government has set this and has said that this is okay, this is fair to the people who live here, even though they voted for governments who have said that they weren't going to do these things. And quite frankly, a lot of the people who come into the country aren't paying taxes, and they're not paying fees and surcharges as is implied by this letter. So that's a misrepresentation of situation. And also, it doesn't even mention illegal immigration, which is a massive aspect of this. Now, the fact is that people have voted. It's meant to be a democracy, and people have voted for parties who said they're going to bring down migration, and they haven't done it. And that's not fair. That's dishonest. What governments have done. It's dishonest, and it's unrepresentative. Now, apart from anything else, that is part of the legitimate concern. Now, I do, of course, recognize that immigrants and illegal and legal immigrants are human beings, and they have to be treated as human beings. They have to be shown compassion and love. But what the problem here is that it's just always the emphasis is on that. It's always the emphasis on, well, we have to have this amount of immigration. We have to welcome as many people as want to come here because we have to show love and compassion to them. That's not a balanced view. A balanced view is that we have a responsibility to the people who live in this nation, or at least the government has a responsibility to govern this nation well, and to take care of the people who live here, to protect them, to make sure that the country is as economically prosperous and as safe as possible, and as law-abiding and so on and so forth. That's its primary responsibility. And I do think the ordo mores applies here. After that, then you can love and care for people in other countries, but that is the role of the government primarily. So there is a place, sorry, for loving people outside, people who genuinely need a place to live, and if they, maybe that could be here, maybe that could be somewhere else. But that's the point. It's so unbalanced at the moment. And I don't think this letter in any way gets the heart of it. I don't really think it says anything that's different and that does provide another way of thinking about this or a way through it. I just think it's politically blinkered, and I don't think it takes account of the reality. So that's my view about that. Next story I want to talk about is Gary Lineker. Now, as I said earlier, I'm a big football fan. I think Gary Lineker is a great presenter. He never brings politics, or at least I've never heard him bring politics into an actual TV show, football TV show like Match of the Day, or when he's presented the World Cup. He's a very, very good presenter. But he is always posting stuff on social media, and now one of the things he's posted has finally crossed the line for everyone. He posted I think it was a reel on Instagram. I'm not sure what it was. Anyway, it was about the Gaza-Israel conflict, and it had a rat on it symbolizing a Jew. It's a drawing of a rat, and that is a common anti-Semitic trope. And now Gary Lineker is essentially shuffled out the door slightly more quickly than he was going to be. He was going to finish, I think, working for the BBC at the 2026 World Cup. Now that's not going to happen. The Sun says the former Leicester City and English striker is bowing out by mutual agreement after 26 years with his final match of the day this Sunday. Gary agreed to leave the BBC for good after meeting bosses last week, with a source saying he realised his position was untenable. The match of the day host's early departure comes 5 days after he apologised for sharing a controversial post which accused him of anti-Semitism. He reposted a video which criticised Zionism, and it included an illustration of a rat. He steps back after 26 years with the broadcaster, where he was its highest paid presenter, £1.35 million a year. His final years as Match of the Day host have been marred by his outspoken views and fallout with bosses. He's now likely to focus on his successful Goal Hanger podcast business. The rest is football. It's quite a good podcast, actually. And those close to the star said his exit means he will be able to speak more freely. Well, we'll all look forward to that. We can't wait to hear what Gary Lineker really thinks about things. Last Tuesday, Gary deleted an Instagram story post from the group Palestine Lobby after he had shared it with his 1.2 million followers. The repost led to widespread calls for the BBC to drop Gary, and the charity Campaign Against Anti-Semitism said it was submitting a complaint to the corporation. So there we go. So he's done. He's out but he's still got a massive podcast empire, and I'm sure he'd be fine. He'll probably do some other stuff elsewhere. Like, for what it's worth, he always comes across to me as a nice bloke. He's just, to be honest with you, I just wonder whether he's not very intelligent. And he's, he lives in Southwest London, in this kind of, again, it's the same kind of thing I was just talking about, this kind of metropolitan group think. Everyone thinks the same thing. They all back each other up. They can't understand why, when he posts something on social media depicting a Jew as a rat, people find that offensive. Um, it's because he literally doesn't know anyone who would find it offensive. That's why. There's such a sort of blinkered arrogance to it that he only finds out after the event. He just thinks it's a completely reasonable. It's like, well, it's just what I think. It's just what reasonable people think. I mean, everyone I know thinks it. Everyone else probably does as well. Probably thinks it's all right. But it's not, of course, because it's deeply offensive to the Jewish people to depict them as rats carrying disease. It kind of, he once accused people of the Tories of using Nazi-style rhetoric. I mean, there's a slight case of hypocrisy here. So I wonder whether Gary just maybe he's not very intelligent in that sense, and he's just surrounded by people who think the same thing as him. There is the question of whether or not he is actually an anti-Semite or not. Does he actually hate Jews? And I don't think personally, I don't know him personally, but I really would find that extremely surprising if he actually hates Jews and he's actually, actually anti-Semitic. I don't really think he is. I think apart from anything else, he's too nice a bloke to have, actually bigoted and prejudicial views. I think he's just influenced by the political milieu that's around him. The other thing I'd say about this is I do think that there's something really kind of embarrassing about a footballer who's so obviously uninformed, who so obviously doesn't grasp any nuance of the situation that he's talking about, holding forth on these things and presenting himself really as a sort of free speech martyr who's willing to lose his job in order to tell the truth. It's so out of step with the reality of the situation. The fact is he's a football player. He was a good football player. He was a great presenter. He was great at both things. He's had a great career in both those areas. That's what he knows about. What he actually knows about politics and geopolitics and the geopolitical situation in Israel, Gaza is obviously not very much. It's obviously what he's picked up from, conversations with his friends in Southwest London or in a gastro pub or something like that. He doesn't actually know anything about what he's talking about. And posting on Instagram is not being Martin Luther King or leading principled resistance like Gandhi. It's just shooting your mouth off about something you don't really know what you're talking about. And that's the way it comes across. It doesn't come across as noble and informed and necessary. It just comes across as like, why are you bringing your career as a presenter to the BBC to an end in such an ignominious and embarrassing fashion when it's so unnecessary? So it's a bit of a shame. But as I say, he still has his podcast empire, and the rest is football is a good podcast, and I'm sure he'll go around the world covering football tournaments in other ways, for podcasts or for other news. For other channels. To be honest with you, I think that being a football correspondent would be a fantastic job. And if you can get the work, I mean, what a great job going to. I mean, Spurs are playing in the Europa League final in Bilbao today. I mean, imagine how exciting it would be just to be a journalist. Maybe they lost touch with how exciting and fun it would be to do that in Bilbao. But I look out the window here, it's rainy, it's grey, it's cold. I'm watching TV, I'm really excited, really looking forward to it. But imagine doing that as a job. And, all you've got to do in the case of Gary Lineker is just not post anti-Semitic content on Instagram. And he hasn't cleared that relatively low hurdle. So, sorry, Gary, you're out. Stick to football, please. Although now you're not going to. Now you're going to do even more of these kinds of things. The final thing I wanted to talk about today is the EU reset deal that Starmer is involved in. Now, the polls are all saying, the opinion polls are all saying that Labour are becoming ever increasingly unpopular it seems like everything they are doing is an attempt to lose as many voters as they possibly can. And I think at this point, if things carry on in this way, it seems really likely that Reform are going to be the next government and that governing party, and that Nigel Farage is going to be the next prime minister. Now, who knows what kind of permutations it might take with other parties, ostensibly conservative or right-leaning parties, in the next 4 years, because it is still another 4 years, believe it or not. We've only had 1 year of this so far, with all the many, many things that have happened. Winter fuel allowance, the attack on farmers, the reset deal. There's probably loads of other things that I can't think of now, but it just seems like everything they're doing is massively unpopular. The way he handled the riots in the summer, two-tier care. It seems like everything he's doing is an attempt to lose as many votes as possible, to alienate as many voters as possible. And this most recent one is, of course, going to alienate the so-called red wall voters who voted for the Tories in 2019 because of the attempt to close down Brexit by the left, by Labour and Lib Dems, after the 2016 referendum. Now, I'm going to read this article out because it's a good article. It's by David Frost, and it will help us to understand what's going on here. So he says, to begin with, that the deal that Starmer is making with Ursula von der Leyen and the EU is worse than he thought. The EU played hardball while the British entry to Eurovision was sinking fast on Saturday night. So too was Starmer's reset balloon, and the British team started chucking most of their negotiating ballast over the side in a desperate attempt to keep it afloat. So and then he says, so what the hell just happened? 5 bad things. So here we go. First, we are rejoining the single market for agri-food. We must apply EU laws in farming and food sectors in all companies and farms, whether they trade with the EU or not, and EU courts will have the final say on disputes. Labour believes that our food trade has collapsed and their deal will help. They simply don't understand what's going on. Reclassification, trade diversion, substitution of cheaper non-EU goods on our market, even the weather, all this is more important to the trade figures than trading paperwork. Labour seem to think the British economic renaissance is going to be rebuilt on minor changes to a food and drink trade that amounts to 2 to 3% of our exports. Yet they really believe this. Why are they killing family farms and making them farm solar panels? So that's the first thing. The effect of this deal will be to make it easier for the EU to export to us than the other way around. Secondly, it commits us to joining the single market for electricity, the EU's carbon trading scheme, and their scheme to put tariffs on carbon unfriendly goods, the so-called CBAMs. You may think that energy prices are high enough already, but watch this space, because the EU's carbon price is 50% higher than ours. Worse still, we commit to net zero obligations, at least as ambitious as the EU. Want to get out of net zero? Tough. You can't unless the EU agrees. I mean, that's appalling in my opinion. It's absolutely appalling. I do agree with Frosty here. I do think this is an absolute capitulation to the EU, and it's a betrayal of a referendum, a democratic referendum. Third, we've abandoned control of our fishing grounds, otherwise coming back in full next year until the incredible date of 2038. So they were coming back in full next year. Now that's been put back till 2038. The EU originally asked for 4 years, and the thought the EU might accept 6 or 7, and then we agreed to 12. Frost quotes Churchill's wry comment on his dreadnought building programme. The Admiralty demanded 6 ships, the Economist offered 4, and we finally compromised on 8. This agreement destroys the prospect of rebuilding the fishing industry with our own fish stocks. Labour have promised a recovery fund, but more taxpayers' money is not what the industry needs, and is not the same as building a productive fishing industry, catching and selling a product people want. Labour have been tin-eared to our coastal communities, and they will pay the price. That's definitely true, the latter part. Fourth, there will be a youth mobility scheme. It's rebranded a youth experience scheme, but the text makes clear that it's for people volunteering or simply travelling. Can't they do this already? There is no commitment to a cap on numbers, merely the overall number of participants is acceptable to both sides. Who can have confidence Labour will be tough here? Let's hope they don't move their fisheries negotiator to youth mobility. And finally, we have to pay. a fee for the right to be governed by the EU on agri-food, another fee to accept their energy and net zero rules, and a fee to rejoin the Erasmus student scheme. This used to cost us about 150 million a year, and certainly will do so again in the future, because we always get more EU students here than we send to Europe, since we have the best universities and the English language. I'm not against EU students coming here, but why can't the EU pay for them, just as we pay for our students abroad under the Turing scheme? But no, soon we will be paying for both. All this seems to have been paid to get a security and defence agreement which doesn't contain much of either of those things, merely a long list of meetings we get or might get to attend. The text even says that it is based on dialogue and consultation mechanisms to facilitate the exchange of information. Not exactly NATO, and so much the better for it, of course. But why have we paid so much to get it? And of course, the much vaunted deal on e-gates at airports, the text provides only for exchanges about the potential use of e-gates where appropriate. In many EU airports, the potential is already actual, and elsewhere, who knows? In short, this deal concedes important British interests for very little in return. It begins the process of bit by bit bringing this country back into the embrace of the single market and the customs union. Conservatives are right to commit to returning these powers to Britain, and reformers even more right to say that the Windsor Framework and the other EU law relics must be scrapped too. All that will take some work. What we have today is a political agreement. The legal text will take months. Many important points have simply been put off, and Labour are bound to concede even more on the detail. Labour's red wall voters, if there are any left, are not going to be happy. The Tories must put the work in with real energy and harry Labour every step of the way in Parliament and outside, and then work out a proper plan to take the powers back and more in future. Labour don't care, of course, about what they've conceded. Their main aim is just to get closer to the EU again. The EU are ruthless. They will happily mouth warm words without letting it deflect them from pursuing their interests, but Labour just can't let go of their former partner. Their affections for Brussels are as warm as ever, but it won't help them, and it will only do harm to this country. We should have realised what was going on last Saturday when the Austrians won Eurovision with Wasted Love. This country will pay the price for it. And I think that's all right. I don't really have very much to add, apart from, I think, once again, it's this ideological groupthink. It's this, you can see it in these pictures of Starmer and Ursula von der Leyen. The clear sense of comfort and ease he has in the country, in the company of these Brussels and EU types. He's absolutely loving it. He's in his element being with them, hobnobbing around with those EU elites. He famously said that he would choose Davos over Whitehall. And you can just see this is what it is. It's an ideological thing. It's a question of loves. It's a question of the fact that Starmer doesn't love this country, and he doesn't love the people in it. He doesn't love the communities in this country. What he loves is being in Brussels and hobnobbing with these people, being in Davos, hobnobbing with these EU elites, and he's just giving them everything they want, and the people in this country are going to pay the price for it. So it's an utter betrayal, of course, and it's a movement back towards Brexit. And my prediction is it's going to make Labour even more unpopular. It's not even a prediction; it's just what's already happening, and you can see it. So anyway, you can see it through these polls, these opinion polls. So anyway, that's a sort of roundup of everything that's going on that I noticed in the UK this week. Do send an email to me if you'd like to, or to us, me, Tom and Daniel, at irreverentpod@gmail.com. Tell me what you think about that, and give me other stories or questions or comments, irreverentpod@gmail.com, and I'll be interested to hear from you. Before I pray to finish, I'd just like to give a couple of notices. So the first one is about this special event that's going on, which is only for supporters. I'm doing a special interview with Bijan Omrani, who's the author of a new book, God is an Englishman. I think, I haven't actually got it to hand, but I think the subtitle is Christianity and the Creation of English Culture, or the Making of English Culture. I have almost finished it, so I've engaged with it extensively, but I just can't remember the subtitle. But anyway, we're doing an in-person interview. We're doing a live recording, and I'm inviting subscribers to be present at the live recording and to have drinks afterwards. So that's happening. And if you'd like to get an invitation to that special event and to future special events, because I'd like to do more of these kinds of things, special live recordings and other things, then please do support us. Go to irreverentpod.com and click on the big red button to become a Patreon today. As I said earlier, it's only £1.50 plus VAT in the UK. So it's about £1.80 in the UK a month to support us and to get invites to this, to get our free audio podcast, uncollared, to get the episodes early and to get other special episodes. So you get lots of stuff. You can do that on Patreon, as I say, irreverentpod.com, or you can go to irreverentpod.substack.com and support us on Substack, and you get exactly the same stuff. It's just on a different platform. If you'd like to just donate directly, which in some ways is the most cost-effective way of helping us, just send me an email at reverendpod@gmail.com. I will accept your donation and I will put you on as a free subscriber on Substack. I can't do free subscribers on Patreon, but I can do them on Substack. So do support in that way, and that will make a huge difference. And you'll get to join our community of supporters, which I really am working on. I'm trying to make that a real thing, a real sense of community. I do genuinely need this money. I live from the money. I make podcasting and writing. I'm not paid to be a vicar. So you're directly helping me. You're directly putting food on my table. You're helping to pay the overheads of this podcast and to keep it going. Hopefully it's a ministry which is helpful to people and reaches people. I hear often that it does. So you're directly helping with that. So please do that. irreverentpod.com. Click on the big red button. Support us for £1.80-ish a month in the UK, or go to irreverentpod.substack.com and support us there. Now, the other just brief notice is just for my blog, which I like to plug from time to time. I've actually been doing a bit more with my blog recently. My blog is called Good Things, and it's essentially a kind of personal blog where I write about devotional writings. You know, I frequently write about devotional and spiritual and theological books I've been reading or themes I've been engaging with. And I try and steer away from politics and things which are going to make people feel stressed out, and talk about things I'm learning, things that I'm enjoying, things that are going on in my life, both intellectually and personally. And I've been trying to post a bit more and be a bit more engaged there. So I've been doing some more spiritual reflections there recently. But that's another really great way to support me personally. So that's also on Substack, jamiefranklin.substack.com. It's called Good Things. And if you like Good Things, and if you're a reader, please do share those blogs around, because it really, really does help me. But I appreciate anyone going on Substack and either follow me as just an unpaid subscriber, if you like, because I give quite a lot of the stuff away for free. But even better is to become a paid subscriber and to help me in that way. So I'll leave the link below, and you can support me in that way as well. Also buy my book, The Great Return: Why Only a Restoration of Christianity Can Save Western Civilization. Did a really interesting interview with Louise Perry on her podcast last week about that, which will be coming out on her podcast Made in Mother Matriarch soon. But that's another way you can support, is by buying the book. Anyway, that's it for now. It's been a shorter episode today, mainly because I don't have anyone to banter with, but some people might like that. A lot of the time people say, oh, get to the meat. We just want to hear the stories. We just want you to be a news generating machine. So I feel like I've done that, really. I feel like I've sort of plowed through that this week. So hopefully it's been interesting for you. I'm going to say the collect for the fourth Sunday after Easter now, and then I'm going to bid you farewell and be with you next week with various things that are going on. I'm not going to promise anything now because I'm not certain what's going on, but I'm sure there'll be some interesting stuff. So let's pray. O Almighty God, who alone canst order the unruly wills and affections of sinful men, grant unto thy people that they may love the thing which thou commandest, and desire that which thou dost promise, that so, among the sundry and manifold changes of the world, our hearts may surely there be fixed where true joys are to be found through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Thank you as ever for listening. Do share the show around, subscribe to us wherever you get this, whether it's on YouTube or on iTunes or wherever, Apple Podcasts I should say. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, keep watch and keep the faith.